Hello. So this is the first strat post of this tier. For people that are new to the strat post, typically between the Friday to Sunday time period, I'll have a video around 15 minutes, kind of say looking at what our pulls are like, what we're doing wrong, what we could do better. I would have other logs from other guilds or other videos from other guilds to kind of show and compare, so that we come into Monday's raid stronger, ready to get stuff done. So to this raid in particular, this boss in particular, Opulence, I'm not really gonna have other people, other guilds logs, and other videos to see what's going on. Um, because our main problem was on us. When I look through the problems of what's going on, it's not about like our strategy too much, but it's more on like how people are approaching the fight. And so I do think um, this raid, Thursday's raid, was kind of the first really not so great raid of the tier. You can argue some of the heroic knights weren't so hot, but honestly, when it comes to like the mythic rating, the actual progression, this one really stands out. Grong was you can attribute a lot of that to some of the frustration from the bugs, the RNG of the ads going either on each side or always to the back, which made it like more difficult to do what we need to do. But this boss is like a slightly buffed heroic boss, if it makes any sense. There's a couple extra mechanics in, but in the first phase, basically all the mechanics from the heroic exist. There's like some overlaps with someone with a debuff getting sent over to the fire side during fire, which is new to Mythic. Um, but it's really the same fight. And so I'm not even gonna be looking at phase two because phase two is basically the same with just move liquid gold out further away. Our pulls on phase two, except for the first one, was actually kill worthy for both of them. If we had people alive, we would have killed the boss. On this one, actually, boss would have just fell over if we had people alive. Either way, um, what I believe caused our, inability to kill the boss were a couple things. Obviously, individual misplays are the thing that pops out. But to most people, what pops out to me the most is kind of the lack of some people um, critically thinking and problem solving. Also, the raid kind of pitching in on that as well. But more importantly, people themselves that make mistakes, looking why they made mistakes, and fixing it. And it is okay to make mistakes. Um, Everyone will blunder here and there, but it's not okay to like not seriously think about what caused your mistake and fix it. So getting more into critical thinking and finding examples to show what I want to talk about. We're going to use a few pulls. I'm just going to use myself first because this is the pull that I died to Flames of Punishment, so we can all laugh at me and just see what's going on. So first of all, just to see, make sure that is a genuine kill. We see right here, Flames of Punishment, death on me. I'm not going to look at viruses right now, but we will show mine as an example. So we're going to go to the replay. We're going to go over here. We're going to go to around the time that I'm dying, just to fully understand my death. So I get sent over with volatile charge very shortly. Just wait. There we go. So you see volatile charge is on me. I run and drop it to the back. Namuro also has it in the group. So I'm right here. And what's happening during the Flames cast is that I casted a Frostbolt and then an Ice Lance. And so I'm waiting for this to go away. And there's one of two things I could have... Well, I could have done one of two things. I could have moved in immediately. Well, first of all, let's watch me die. Dead. Okay. So there's a couple things. Immediately when I died, the first thing that came to my mind was, why did I just die? And what can I do to avoid it? I died because I greeted out for an extra cast. If we go and look over here, we just look at what I'm doing. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. We go and look what I'm doing. Too late, but you see I had a Frostbolt, then I had an Ice Lance. I could have done one of two things. I could have prepped myself better to run properly for the Flames of Punishment while I was back there, casting my spells, or I could have ice blocked. Either two would have been fine. I did 0 of them, and I died. So you will see later on, or actually you see for the rest of the night, I don't mess up at all, even though it's only an hour into raid. For the last 2 hours, I don't wipe through this at all, because I understand my mistake, and I just make sure I don't make the mistake again. And so that's an easy death to kind of analyze and look at. Some deaths are not as easy to analyze and look at and require fight knowledge and like self-reflection to really go through. So in this death, or these deaths, I'm going to be looking at literally in Dutch's death right here. I'm not going to look at Sarathia's because it's just not moving in fast enough thing. So we're going to, again, skip ahead to where, yeah. So we're in the Flame Jets room. You can see over here, Flame Jets. Trust me, there's Flame Jets over here. And so this is about to happen. Flame Jets is going to happen somewhat soon. But we're also in the Flame Jets room. So I'm just going to pause right here. And I'm going to say what the problem is right now. Well, actually, no, I'm not. We're going to let this play through. But we see everyone is stacked up here except for Dutch and Lichley. And so Flame Jets is going to happen very soon. Channel Cast happens right now. Lichley is moving in late. She's barely going to die, and we see I'm over here. The swap happened right during the Flames cast, so I blinked out and blocked, so I live. That's in reflection of what happened earlier on in pull 10 here. Dutch is going to die very shortly because he's in the middle of nowhere. So Dutch is dead right here. Okay, so if someone looks at this log, if someone looks at their death, they may say, "Oh, I didn't move in fast enough," and that's true. Dutch didn't move at all. Literally didn't move in fast enough. She started moving when the Flame Punishment cast was happening instead of 5 seconds before, what I'm trying to call out. This overlap, I'm almost 100% sure that I called it out in raid because I did react appropriately with my swap and ice block. So if someone said, "Oh, I thought I could have moved in fast enough," and I didn't, "Oh, I didn't move in fast enough," like, that's true, but that's not the cause of your deaths. And this one, the cause of your death is you're not stacked up. And so this requires a deeper understanding of the fights overall. Flame Jet side on Fire side is basically a free room because there's nothing that you need to spread out for, and standing in melee makes it so that you never get hit by flames. So the mistake was right here when the Flame Jet spawned in the center of the room. This was the mistake. Running back and not running into melee for Flame Jet's room on Fire side was the mistake. If you did that, you would have been in time to move for Flame's Punishment and wouldn't have died. And so you can, not understanding like the room and what you're doing is part of the reason why the wipe happened. And so, well, I'll blame the people that made the mistake, though. Most certainly the majority of the blame is on them. It's also, if people were looking on this side seeing that people were out of position, that's a comment. If I saw this and I saw people were standing in range during Flame Jet's side on Fire side, or Flame Jet's Fire side, I would have called them out to move in. Honestly, my goal right here when I'm blocking is my own job, and so I can't blame the raid too much and not telling other people what they need to do on that side. So that's an example of kind of the difference between critical thinking and not is looking at why you died. Understanding the fight overall requires you to have a higher understanding of the fight. So from this point, I kind of want to talk about all the rooms. What on the Fire side, at least to start, kind of what people should be aware of on each side of the room, to make sure that things go smoother. So I'm just going to start it playing. I might as well talk about this now, but we see what's going on. The boss is in the center on the right side. There were concerns of crushes happening to the ranged, and honestly this would have been solved if this ad is over here. We do see that Flames of Punishment is happening, so if he's really getting some like cast off of Flames of Punishment, that's an issue. But if it's standing over there and everyone's pre-potting, the thing should die before that. So in the first room, it should be brought over to the edge if you are consistently skipping that first Flames of Punishment. Moving on to the second room, this is the Flame Jets room. As we see, the boss is brought over here, so that the melee are able to hit. Honestly, everyone else should be immediately beelining for this other side so that they can sit there and just do their own stuff. But it doesn't happen. Some people are a bit late. Some people wait for the Flame Jets and they move in. That's okay, not the best, but it's still okay. And you see everyone moves in, and then the fire is going to happen right here, whether it skips or not. Looks like the fire is not going to get skipped. So they do the circle around. From this point, you kind of know fire room, stack up in melee, dodge fire. That's just the room, and then you're done. Um, Beam room, you see people are spreading out. You see friends over here. You see, oh, no more. You see that this space is actually pretty open for people to kind of spread out and go to. People are around here. People are not at this gate, which is good, so that you're not preventing yourself from moving onwards. So the crush happens. The beam is going to happen, or the flames of punishment is going to happen soon. Happens there. People move in. You do your stuff, and you turn around. You see that this Dutch does not move in for flames, so he dies. You can see really easily the mistakes happening when you go through. So this room is simply put, spread out to other sides of the room, and then run in a circle when the flame happens. This last room, you stack up, because you have a druid on that side of effervescence. There's nothing that really makes you needing to run out, so you should be stacked up. You could stack up wherever. It doesn't really matter if you're on the wall or you're not. Just make sure you're stacked up. We see crush happens, you dodge. That is something to pay attention to in this phase. And so flames of punishment happens, and you do your thing. So you can see Rohan turtle right there with the debuff, which is a good idea, because the stuff is happening at the same time. You move up, you're back in the beam room, you spread out, and so you just see how people do the debuff. Somewhat spread out, not really, but that's, people should spread out more. Flames happening, move in. You see Dutch is not in position, so he's going to maybe die. You can just pay attention to what's going on. Yep, you see that he dies right here. And then you move on to the next room, just seeing what's going on. And so here is the Jets room, and so this is where you should just be in melee. So after the first Jets happened, we see some people are melee, some people are not. We see that the flames are preventing people from running into melee right now, but we're going to see it change very soon. And so here is a point of interest. So the flames of punishment is going to come somewhat soon, and this is a similar situation to what was going on before in this room, or in the first death that I saw with Lithuanian Dutch. A bunch of people are stacked up in melee because they can. You see Just Wet is to the side a little bit, so you get sliver stacks. That's okay. But you see both Donnie and I are not in the back. And so the reason Donnie and I are in the back right here has some meaning to what we're doing on the left side, which I'll get in a second. Because this is optimizing the backspace when the debuffs go out in this situation. But this is still incorrect on the flames room. And so what happens, I blink in, as you see right there, to be in melee, because there's no reason to not be in melee. You see Donnie still back here. I actually think Donnie's in the safe range spot if I'm looking properly. Either way, flames of punishment is happening, and so now Donnie needs to make a choice. Actually, he has no choice. If he's going to live, he needs to run through fire. And so he's going to run through fire to make sure he's in for flames of punishment. And he's going to get hit once. And it ends up not being the end of the world. He ends up not dying. But he ups the dot on himself. And so this, if he didn't have some kind of external or defensive to use right there, he would have gotten chunked pretty hard. He instead didn't. While he lived in the end, he should have moved inwards earlier on. And so a lot of the gem rooms kind of just, do your own thing. And then you just have the rest of the fight. The last room is just not really anything worth commenting on. So that's just how the fire side goes. Once that you are stacked up on the wall, you move in a circle. In another room, you're spread out, you move in a circle. One room, you're stacked in the center, and you move in a circle. And so the right side is very easy conceptually, but if you're not paying attention to when you should be changing what you need to do, that's when things get messy, and that's when deaths happen on the fire side, as well as like lightning orbs. So the last thing I want to talk about on this fireside stuff is just talk about flames of punishment deaths in general. And so I took the liberty of saving a bunch of time, and well, for everyone else, not for me, and outlining all of the deaths that happened to flames of punishment over the course of the night. So I ignored the first 30 minutes of raid, just because it's the first 30 minutes of raid, some warm ups happening, some like discussion of, hey, this is how I'm dodging it, what's going into play. So we'll leave that out. There were actually quite a bit of flames of punishment deaths if you wanted to look at that. And so I listed all of the flames of punishment deaths that existed from before when I called the wipe. When you look at some polls, you can see very easily that, you know, some of them happened after the wipe happened. This is poll 2. This is poll 6. We're just looking in general. I can't find one right now because I didn't think to have an example. But you know, if everyone's dying at the end at some point, and you can tell that, you know, it's a death. So like right here, you can see I called the wipe around this time. People are dying to creeping blains. If there's a planes of punishment death somewhere around here, that's not going to be counted, obviously. And there are, so I listed over here. Like deaths that I felt were noteworthy of the comment, and also deaths that I felt were excused and why. And the two kinds of deaths that I found appropriate to be excused were, one, Just What's death, when he stood in place but then received the dot. That was the first time that it was addressed in the raid that was an issue. So the raid didn't know. Maybe some people didn't know in general. So this is fine. This is a learning poll. This is a learning death. The other ones are when people have the orb and they run out and die. So like Strathy's one right here. So you can just look through and kind of see what's going on. TLDR, you look through all of this. You look through these death logs and see what's going on. You reach this number. And so these are all the people that died past the first 30 minutes to a flank to whatever. And that's the count. If you look at the numbers here, you see, you know, some interesting stuff about like when people died. Some people died much later on. Either that's tiredness or tilt. Please take that seriously. I understand when you have a bad night, it's hard to stay focused. You make more mistakes. You're frustrated. But you know, saying, hey, I messed up because I was tilted because people were making mistakes and I played, you know, badly myself. That's a step in the direction you need to go and figure out a solution to that. If you're tired, that's hard to find a solution. If you're starting to not care, then understand that when you're dying, you're doing the same thing that's like demoralizing other people. So these are the numbers. Look at your deaths and take that seriously. Grats to Lead Your Rune and Solone for never getting sent over, so you're never going to die to Flames of Punishment. And then grats to these people for never dying to Flames of Punishment. I did put a little bit thing that Milton got hit quite a lot, but he still lived. YCR and Log are on the side, assigned on the right side in general, so they're going to see it more often than others in general, you know, overall. So grats to them especially, and then grats to Donnie for not dying. So these are just the ones. Like, look through this. The polls are kind of dropped down, and when this has happened, look what's going on, so that you can see what you're doing to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Because this is just a boss that has a lot of individual responsibility. So now that the fire side is done, we're going to talk about the lightning side. And to begin this, I'm going to say the lightning side is more complicated, more difficult side for a few reasons. And the first one, the healing requirement is significantly higher. And that's because while the fire side has a debuff that demands them to run in a circle, the lightning side has a set of debuffs that goes on 3 people that does constant ticking damage and that denies space. So, you know, as you can see here, the healing that Allegiant and Rune pulled out are by nature a lot more, and Yeri and Friend. It's not because Yeri and Friend are playing poorly, it's because the demand on the left side is higher. And if the demand on the left side is higher, it means the skew on other things, making like other mistakes happening, is just prone for people to die sooner. Because the orbs take up space, it means people need to position it in a certain way. It means if you position it poorly, that the room suffers quite a bit. And if someone is dead on that side, it becomes even harder to do it because you get even more orbs, which denies even more space. So everything just kind of compounds on itself. If we're looking at general like damage taken, just to see how it's, you know, in general, we look here, we see volatile charge is the number 2 damage taken ability out of the stuff, and it makes sense. You know, every time it's on someone, it goes on 3 people, and then every second it takes for, you know, a little bit over 16k nature damage. That adds up a lot, especially when you combine it with the post-quickening toxin. This becomes a pretty rough situation. We can see crush, you know, some of that is people getting smacked, some of that is just the natural raid damage, the flame jest, the scorching ground, all that stuff. You can see that overall, like, this is taken 10% of the overall damage in the fight, while, you know, everything else, like, you know, the stuff on the fire side, like, in total probably just adds up to just this amount. Anyways, looking at kind of how the lightning side is doing their job, that becomes a bit trickier than just looking at someone dying and being like, well, you know, you died to this because of this. Someone taking damage from a certain ability doesn't mean it's their fault. We're just going to get into, you know, a replay so people kind of understand what I'm talking about. So the name of the game on the left side is to get the orbs as far back as possible to leave the front of the room clean for the later parts of the fight. So we're going to see right here, this is wipe 10. I'm using wipe 10 just because I felt like it. We see that there are a few people that get the debuff. I have the debuff. Alidra has the debuff. I don't see the third debuff. Wherever it is. Either way, first room doesn't matter too much because we're going to push very soon. So as long as they play somewhat back, there's not much of an issue. We'll wait till this goes on. So we're in the first room, the flame jets room. And so I want to say that the flame jets room on fire side is pretty free. Is not nearly as free on this side because when you want to drop it, you want to drop it as back as possible. Sometimes fire is there, sometimes it's not. So you want to maximize the time that, you know, you're dropping it in the back when there's fire. See a lot of ranger chilling in the back. People get swapped around, and so the debuffs come out. I don't know why it's not showing the debuffs. There it is. So we see the debuffs going on. Just What, Rune, and Donnie. And so we're going to see what happens. Rune ran to the side. He's running back because he recognizes that the fire swapped and now the back is open. So both Rune and Donnie run back and drop off their debuff, and Just What drops it up front. And so this is the first time that there's, like, you know, already, you know, not even a minute to the pull, there's a mistake. You know, Just What could have dropped it in the back. He ran forward instead. There's another space in the melee that's taken up that, you know, could have been avoided. And so this doesn't affect this set too much at all because there's only one more set of debuffs coming out, so it doesn't, like, you know, matter in that room. But in other rooms it does matter. So moving to beams, beams kind of have a little bit of, or this adds more space denial as well because you can't, like, now some people need to run through and it needs to go out. So we see Rune gets it again. Rune, Namuro, and someone else gets it. I don't know what the third person is. But you see Rohan drops it here, kind of in the middle-ish. Namuro drops it in melee. Rune drops it kind of in the back. Namuro could have definitely dropped it further in the back. But didn't. So that's something, you know, the boss is at 72%. So we're going to transition when they have one more set. YCR has it. He moves to the back. Just What has it. He's in the back. And so they drop it, they move on, and they go. We continue seeing what's going on. This is the toxin room. We stack up for the most part, and then we move to the sides when we have the debuffs. We look at them. You know, debuffs go out. I can't see it. There's Just What, there's YCR, and there's Srathia. So you see YCR here, Just What here. These already in position. Siri moves out. I don't know if he moves to the edge in time. Maybe, maybe not. Also, just look at me die in a second. Good night. So we're in the next room, and this is the beam room. Similar before, range are spread out. There's some people in the back to try and bait it in the back. And this is where things start to become a little bit interesting. We see Just What, Rune, and I believe Alidra has the debuff. So we see right here, Just What and Rune drop off their debuff in the back, which is good. And then Alidra drops the debuff right here, right at this instant. So we see at a diagonal from Rune, Rune's in the corner and dropped it off. Alidra is kind of in a corner and drops it off. And so this is where problems happen. And so we're just going to look at Rune's health and where he dropped it and what's going on. And so look what he needed to do. Look how he's still not over here, and that he's almost dead. He's at 7k life because of all the stuff he needed to do. If we go back and look at this, so this is not like his fault for placing it where he did. He placed it in a good spot. It's just when Alidra placed it back here, he placed it in a position where Rune can't easily just move to the left and move up, or just move up. So he becomes restricted in movement, trying to find a time to move through and not die. And then he gets hit by all the natural other stuff because he takes extra time. And so if Rune died here, this would not be, oh, Rune took damage from volatile charge and died. This would be, oh, Alidra placed it kind of in an iffy spot, and so Rune had to do some circumventing to get to where he needed to be. And so the question is, where should Alidra put his thing? He could have put it to the far right. He could have put it in the center to give him room to move up. He could have put it actually in melee, because we had heroed that room and gone through it very quickly, and it would have not been in the range of everyone else. It is just as important for people to move it back as it is for people to see where the other people are dropping their debuff off. And so there's just a lot of like spatial awareness going on this side of the room. And so we'll go back over here and we'll see what's going on. We'll see just what's in the very back. I believe this is like the safe spot. And so we see 3 debuffs coming out. The flames are going to happen. These people are going to move back. All of them move back and drop it off. And you see that there's this instance where just what's in the back and everyone else is dropping it off as far back as they can. So it is none of the people's fault that dropped it off if Just What died, because Just What was in the very end to begin with. When there's fire and all that stuff, like people on the back, you either need to like haul forward and dodge, or you need to just like not try and save a couple movements and just be with the group, because this is not a DPS race. So looking at the rest of the poll, it's not really that exciting. All the stuff that I talked about is there. The gem room is pretty simple, what you need to do. The last room is pretty simple, what you need to do. Last room becomes an absolute mess for left side when it takes a while. But that's really the lightning side. And so you go through several lightning polls, and you see who's doing what, and you get some results. So in summary, well, I'll say for the lightning mechanic stuff, looking through all the logs, unfortunately at the time of me recording this video, as you'll see when I go to replays, the images aren't really moving, so I can't see the realms of where people are moving. And so all I did is look at relative stuff, but that's not going to be much use for most other people in this video. So there'll just be some text explaining what's going on later on in the week when I get this post out, so people can take the time to look at it. So I'm going to get on to everything else. Really, this video, if I were to sum it up in a couple of sentences, is people need to look at why they die deeply, integrate that into their play, and also while other people dying, because we had repeat deaths of people doing the same mistakes other people did in pulls, and that destroys away wipes. And honestly, wipe count becomes a thing that you need to look at, and how many pulls are you losing because of mistakes that other people had already made. And so on that kind of topic a little bit, one of the things that honestly helps, and this is not me trying to sound like an ass or anything like that, it's just having more people so you can swap people out. Sometimes people may have a bad raid night. Sometimes people may just need to be swapped in general, performance, mental state, all that other stuff. And it's a world of a difference. We didn't really have an option to swap people in because Numero was net was down, and I could have had Rune DPS and Lavico healing, but then it's like 2 people learning to new roles. Lava coming in and healing on one side is a lot more difficult than just swapping in a DPS. and so our options not swap. But with a couple more people, that option is a lot better. And sometimes, it feels bad to be swapped out sometimes, but some people know when they're not playing well, they need to be swapped, and that's just how it is. And that would have potentially made the difference between killing the boss or not. So make sure you take the death seriously. Look at why you died, and look at if you fixed the problem immediately. If you didn't, that's what your goal in rate should be. And show up Monday, ready to get stuff done. We should be able to kill Opulence if people are focused and ready to go and get some time on Conclave. I'll see you then.